Merry quarantine, everybody. Is it just me, or is it really hard to get into the Christmas spirit, what with like the everything going on? There's nothing in this. But I'll be damned if I let anything stop me from getting into the Christmas spirit. So I decided to watch all of the Netflix original Christmas movies to get myself into the mood. But now my Netflix recommendations are just ruined beyond repair, and I can officially say I'm just tired of Christmas. My girlfriend and I have spent the last 6 weeks watching all 26 Netflix original Christmas movies, coming out to this many hours of my life that I've spent wisely. Now, to be clear, I didn't watch any of the Christmas specials or the Christmas series. I'm planning on killing what's left of my soul with that next year. But like any good science experiment, first we have to talk about the methodology. We decided to rank the movies by how Christmassy they are along the x-axis versus how good they are, just a generally good film along the y-axis. This is what I call the Chris Matrix, or the Matrix of Christmas, or the Matrixmas. I couldn't really settle on a name. But what makes a movie a Christmas movie? Well, to answer that question, we'll have to look at one of my favorite Christmas movies, Die Hard. We asked 3 questions of every single movie that we watched to determine just how Christmassy it is, and see where it fits along this scale. First, does it take place at Christmas time, within roughly 1 to 2 weeks of Christmas? Second, does it celebrate the themes of Christmas, such as togetherness, family, selflessness, all that other stuff? And lastly, does it need to take place at Christmas? Could this movie have happened at any other time, or was Christmas an essential part of the plot? By this metric, Die Hard receives a Christmas score of about 7.5, missing only a perfect 10 because it didn't really have to take place at Christmas time. He could have come to LA whenever. Like, the plot really would have been the same if it took place on any other day. The 26 Netflix original Christmas movies break down, and I realize there's a lot of overlap here, but ultimately they break down into 13 rom-coms, 3 dramas, 3 foreign films, and 7 kids films. So as you can assume, I've kind of had my fill of rom-coms as well. Now, in those movies, there are over 30 musical numbers. I stopped counting after a while because there was one film I just couldn't finish no matter how much I tried. There were 9 baking scenes, 23 dead parents, 12 kiss fake-outs, 12 selfish people in cars, which just seemed like a weird thing to mention, and then 5 snowball fights, and then 5 actual real fight scenes. Also 2 cow births. So let's get into it. I'm gonna start over here at the origin, where the movies are neither Christmassy, nor are they good. Now here we have A Five-Star Christmas, which is an Italian film wherein the Italian Prime Minister flies to Budapest to have an affair with his political rival during his anniversary. And just as the two of them are about to sin, a man dressed as Santa comes in and snaps his neck on the windowsill that's open. So now they have a dead body to deal with, and so that's chaotic. But also, as it turns out in plot twist, spoiler, he's not actually dead, so you can imagine all the kind of hijinks that they get into. Yeah, it's about as bad as you expect. Also, unlike the other 2 foreign films that we watched, it didn't have an English dub at all, so you kind of have to watch the whole thing in Italian with the subtitles on. But it's a really physical comedy movie, so even if you aren't familiar with Italian, you can still kind of grasp what's going on just by watching it. It gets a 3 out of 10 for being a good movie, and it gets a 1 for being a Christmas movie. Next, we have Holidate, which Drew Gooden already talked about, but I'm gonna talk about it anyway, because I watched it first. It's a fun rom-com. It has some genuinely good moments. I didn't hate it. I mean, there's definitely a scene where they used some CGI balloons where I don't think they needed to. It's marketed as a Christmas movie, but it didn't need to take place at Christmas, and in fact, most of the movie doesn't even take place at Christmas at all. It gets a 5.5 out of 10 for being a good movie because I didn't hate it. And it gets a 1.5 on a Christmas movie because it's not a Christmas movie. Next up we have the German film Christmas Crossfire, or as the Germans call it, Wir können nicht anders, which if my German is correct, translates to We Can't Help It. It's a film that I legitimately forgot while I was watching it, that it takes place at Christmas until they had to remind me 3 times during the film that it was a Christmas movie. And then they actually dress someone up as Santa as well, just so you know it's a Christmas movie. It starts off really fast, but then it like loses all of its momentum and then never gets it back up again. So that was a bit of a drag. But what I will say is that I actually was really impressed by the English dub of it. Like the performance is actually really good, except for this great line.
Don't get to speak to my men!
It's considered a Christmas horror movie, even though I didn't really feel necessarily scared by it. Watching it in English, if you want to do that, is totally okay. I think they do a really good job with it, but the German version actually gives you the soul of it, and it still feels really good. I didn't really feel pulled out of it by the dub, but it also didn't have to take place at Christmas time. It wasn't really a Christmas movie. So it gets a 2 on the Christmas scale and a 4 on the good scale. Just because it lost its premise. And for a movie called Christmas Crossfire, there's not really a lot of Christmas or Crossfire, and I was actually kind of really disappointed by that. Next we have A Christmas Prince, The Royal Wedding, which is the sequel to A Christmas Prince. It also seemed like it was supposed to focus on Amber and King Richard's wedding, but it really spends like too much time dawdling on Moldova's financial crisis, especially considering its target audience. And it just seemed to be unfocused. It also totally doesn't have to take place at Christmas. So it gets a 3.5 on the good score, and it gets a 4.5 on the Christmas score. And over here, we have Christmas on the Square, which is just a really bad Christmas movie. Which is such a shame because I really, really wanted to like it, except it's the only film that I didn't actually finish because I just couldn't. There's nothing about it that I thought was like particularly enjoyable, and it really just seemed like it was just trying to be, I don't know, a cash grab seems like a good word for it. So it gets a 1 for being a good movie, because they can't in good conscience give this movie a 0. But it gets a 5 for being a Christmas movie, and I don't even know that, and I feel weird just putting it here because I didn't finish it. But I mean, it's really just so clearly trying to be a Christmas Carol plus every other Christmas movie you've ever watched. So I just feel like this is a good spot to put it. Now here we have A Christmas Prince, The Royal Baby, which is the 3rd in the Christmas Prince series. It focuses on Amber's inevitable childbirth while they have to find the stolen treaty between their country and this country called Panglia, and it's all supposed to be renewed the night before Christmas, and or her baby's gonna be cursed. I don't really have anything to say about this movie aside from the fact that I liked it more than I liked the sequel originally, so I guess the 3rd time is kind of a charm with this one. Anyway, it fits pretty squarely on the 4.5 on both the Christmas and the good scale. So it's a pretty solid 4.5 Christmas movie. Next we have Holiday in the Wild, which is a movie that barely takes place at Christmas time, and it follows a woman who her son has just moved off to college and her husband has just left her. It has a pretty weak narrative, but if you like elephants and Africa, you will probably really like this movie, especially because this movie is actually about a real life elephant sanctuary in Africa that like saves elephants. It's a really cool premise, and it's cool that they like raised awareness for this place. So it tugged on my heartstrings and got a better score than it probably would have if it wasn't about a real life thing. So it gets a 6.5 on the good score, which it probably doesn't really deserve, but it's hard for me to say anything less than that. But it gets a 3.5 for being a Christmas movie because no part of this is a Christmas movie. Maybe just like the end of it. El Camino Christmas. A group of people are held hostage in a convenience store in this huge misunderstanding. It has a twist in it that's so obvious that you can kind of see it from the beginning, and they give you just enough information, but they don't ever explicitly say it. They're just like, hey, you're smart enough to figure this out. Here you go. Move right along. And I actually really like that about it. It's a little bit slow in the beginning, but it does take place on Christmas Eve. I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was fun to watch. I'll give it a 7.5 out of 10 for being a good movie, but it's not a Christmas movie. Give it a good old 3. Boom. Give it a 3 out of 10. Princess Switch 2. Switched again. Margaret's having relationship problems, and so she switches places with the other Vanessa Hudgens so that she can rekindle her love with her old boo, but there's another doppelganger now, and so it makes things a little bit more complicated, and she's evil. This is the only sequel on this entire journey that I liked more than the original. So take that with a grain of salt though, because my brain's turning into liquid and I hear Christmas carols in my nightmares. It's also important to note that it breaks the Netflix Christmas Cinematic Universe, or the NCCU. It transcends both reality and dimensions. I need water. It gets a 6 out of being a good movie and a 5.25 for being a Christmas movie. I'm not even halfway done with these movies. Next is A Christmas Inheritance, where the rich heiress goes to a small town in order to like get close with the locals, and she finds the small town hunk that makes her understand Christmas a little bit better. I mean, it didn't really have to take place at Christmas time, but it does. And it's really by the books. It doesn't do anything new or original. I'm gonna give it a 3 for being good, but like a 6.5 for being a Christmas movie, because it actually is a pretty feel-good Christmas movie. Now while we're here, I gotta talk about Holiday Rush, which gets the same exact score. It's a movie about the rich family that loses all of its income right before Christmas, and they have to learn how to enjoy Christmas without any money. So it does that trope. This also feels really weird to say. It features a predominantly black cast, but it was written by these 2 white dudes, who I don't think have ever had a conversation with a single black person in their entire life. I might be wrong about that.
Hell, you black man on black man, look.
But I don't think I am. Next up is A Holiday Calendar. Another example of a movie with a really interesting premise that just kind of like doesn't follow up on it. It's a movie about a magic future predicting advent calendar, which is really cool. I think that's a really interesting premise, but it just like falls so flat because she spends half of the movie in a relationship with this guy that like they spent no effort into making likable. And so we know that she's not gonna end up with him. We know that she's gonna end up with the best friend because obviously, I don't know, I wasn't crazy about it. It's like a 2.5 for being good and then like a 6.5 for being a Christmas movie. Because it does, you know, it hits on those Christmas moments.
And it's an advent calendar.
Next is A Christmas Chronicles Part 2, which I'm just so disappointed by, because like the whole dynamic that was so fun in the first movie, they just kind of threw out. Now we have this weird kid who's like allergic to everything, but then it turns out that like that makes no difference in the whole rest of the movie. He's just allergic to everything for like one moment. And then he's like eating cookies that he has no idea what's in them in another scene. Every single problem that comes up in this movie is just super easy, barely an inconvenience, and then we just move on right past it. There's like no actual like conflict in this movie, and it's just so frustrating that it was so, like, I was so looking forward to it. It's here on the list. It's all the way down here, and we watched all of these in order. So when I got down to here, I was so excited that it was gonna be like some like life-saving thing that was gonna be a good, you know, moment. But no, I had such a hard time even getting through it. God, what a disappointment. What did we give it? I'm giving it a 2 for being a good movie, but it's a 7.5 for being a Christmas movie because it really does hit all of the Christmas marks. Does that come off as thoroughly disappointed? This is A Christmas Prince. His name is Richard. He's Prince Richard of Aldovia, and the movie follows Amber, a reporter who goes to get like the inside scoop on him, like figure out what the deal is with the Playboy Prince. Only to find out after she's like lied her way into the castle that he actually has a heart of gold and he's actually a really good guy. It's definitely predictable and a little bit slow, but like if you want to get into the NCCU, then this is really kind of required reading. There's definitely better NCCU movies, especially in this series, I guess. It's really what kicked off the NCCU, which is really important to note. Anyway, I'm giving it like a 5.25 for being a good movie and 7 for being a Christmas movie, partially because a Christmas ornament is essential to the plot. It is like a core part of the plot. Like the movie couldn't have resolved the way that it was going to without this Christmas ornament. So, I mean, that really made it need to take place at Christmas, but like... Next up is Angela's Christmas, which is a kid's movie where an adorable little Irish girl steals the darling baby Jesus from a church on Christmas Eve, and because she's worried about him being cold, and she wraps him in a blanket. Like, I don't know, it's a kid's movie. Like, it's hard to be critical about a kid's movie when the plot is just so simple and like everything is so straightforward and just... I don't know, it was okay, but we're holding all of these to the same standard. So I'm giving it a 4 for being good because it's you know, I can't put it on the same, it's just not that good. It's a 4, but then I'm giving it a 7 for also being a decent Christmas movie. It is a Christmas feel, you know? Next is Angela's Christmas Wish, the sequel, which takes a lot of the stuff from like the last movie and just kind of builds on it a little bit. There's more characters. The dynamic between Angela and the brother, who I don't remember his name, is a little bit better, or a little bit more like mature. It's really predictable, and it's just really, it's just a good movie to like put in front of your kids and just like knock them out for like 45 minutes or however long it is. But it did actually have some heartfelt moments that made me really happy. And how cute is this cow in stockings? This is the best thing I've ever seen. 5.5 and a 7.5. It's all right, you know. It's fun. It's fine. Next is the Princess Switch, which is the twins switch places trope, except they're not actually twins, and one of them is a princess. They're like distant cousins or something. I don't know. It was a good start into the Princess Switch saga. And then also a welcome addition to the NCCU. So I'm giving it a 4.5 over here as a good movie, and then a 6.25 for being a Christmas movie. And I realize my hands aren't pointing in the right places, but my brain is soup. Operation Christmas Drop is one of the most predictable movies that we've seen in the entire thing, from her losing her updo and replacing it with curls, and her ditching her pencil skirt for sweatpants. It basically hits every single beat that you expect it to. Like, as soon as you watch the first 30 minutes of the movie, you've seen the entire thing. If it wasn't based off of a real, good, human organization, I probably wouldn't have scored as high as it did. But again, tugged on my heartstrings a little bit for like being based on a real thing that actually like brings good to the world. If that doesn't float your boat necessarily, then maybe you could score it a little bit lower. But seriously, I spent the entire movie knowing what was going to happen, and I feel like this whole thing was just like watching the same movie like 15 times. Because it's based off of a real thing, and I don't know, it makes me just feel good. Like, made me kind of like well up when I found out that it's like a real thing, even though there's a lot of problems with it. Giving it a 6 out of 10 for how good it is, and then 8.5 for being a Christmas movie, because I mean, it hits the criteria pretty well. A California Christmas is a movie where the rich heir goes from the big city to a small town and then learns the meaning of Christmas. Wait, didn't we do this one already?
This one's about a guy.
Oh, sorry. It's about a guy. So the guy goes to a small farm because he wants to buy their land from them, only he gets mistaken for the new farmhand named Manny. So you can imagine a bunch of weird, crazy hijinks ensues from there. It's the classic boy meets girl, boy lies to girl about who he is, boy and girl fall in love, and then there's the sad, crazy twists, you know, also cancer. Even if you haven't seen this movie specifically, you've seen this movie before. But it's like super important to note that this movie's totally about the wrong person. This movie needed to be about Manny, the original farmhand. He is the funniest character in the entire movie. I loved every single moment he was in. I actually legitimately was laughing during like a couple of his lines and the way he is. Like, this movie is worth watching just so you can watch Manny. He's hilarious. We'll say it's a good 6 on a good, and then a Christmas 6 as well. So I think that's a good spot for it. Just Another Christmas is a Brazilian movie which does the Groundhog's Day thing, but like a little bit different. He wakes up on Christmas and can only remember the events that happened last Christmas and the Christmas before that. And so he has this like, it's actually really touching and surprised me by like how heartwarming it was, especially because like the beginning of the movie seemed like it was gonna be really tedious, and then it became something totally different. And I really liked that. I do have to say, if you're going to watch this movie, you cannot watch the English dub. The English version is so just hard to watch. It's just really bad, and it gives me more appreciation for like a good English dub of a movie. So all you anime fans who prefer to watch the sub instead of the dubs, I get you now. I get it. So I'm actually gonna happily give this movie a good old 6 out of 10 for being good, and a 6.75 for being a Christmas movie. It's actually really touching, and I probably would watch it again, just like to show it to someone, because it's actually I didn't hate it. Jingle Jangle was like watching a play. It was so fun and just lighthearted and just enjoyable throughout like most of the movie. It breathed a whole new life into me in the Christmas spirit, especially because it was right there on the Christmas list, and my love of Christmas died somewhere around here. It was an enjoyable Christmas movie that I would totally think is a good thing to watch with the family. I'd love to. It's a very family-friendly movie. We're giving this one a good 7/7. Feels good. Let It Snow is a teenage slice of life movie that revolves around everybody getting together at a party at the end of the movie. It's something that I really could see like 17-year-old me really enjoying because it has a lot of just like teenage angsty romance themes. Like it's a really good teen movie. My biggest complaint is that it seemed like there were too many story threads going on, and I think it probably would have been better as like a short series rather than one 2.5 hour long movie or however long it was. I think it would have been fun to get to know the characters a little bit better because I didn't feel really attached to any of the characters, even though they were all characters that like I knew in high school too. It gets a good score because it actually tries to do something different than a lot of the other movies did, and one way or another it just felt like it was like a breath of fresh air. Also, there's a whole thing in it that never gets addressed, but I don't have a problem with it at all. I was actually really looking forward to it never being addressed, so I'm glad they did that. I'm so tired. Alien Xmas is cute. The alien invasion saves Christmas instead of destroying it, which was what their goal was at the beginning. I don't know. It's only 40 minutes. Hard to hate it. So I'm giving it a 6 for good because it's another kids movie. But I'm giving it an 8.25 because it's a pretty good Christmas movie. I don't know. It's just Christmas Chronicles is sincerely one of my favorite movies that we watched in this whole adventure. I don't even know what to call this. Probably one of my favorite Christmas movies like at all. It's a super fun ride from beginning to end. The dynamic between the brother and the sister is really fun. It's a cool take on Santa Claus. It's a new kind of Santa Claus that we haven't really seen. Kurt Russell plays a kind of like snarky Mr. Santa. I don't want to talk about it too much because I don't want to ruin any of the fun for you, but something that I really feel like is important to say at this point in time is that this movie has more fight scenes than collectively any of the other movies did, including El Camino Christmas and Christmas Crossfire, which I thought you were gonna get a lot more fight scenes in, just because of the nature of it. But no. Those two movies didn't have any of the fight scenes, any of the 5, or snowball scenes. This movie didn't have a single snowball fight in it either. Give me more snowball fights in movies. Just, it's not hard and it's cute. Anyway, I'm gonna give this movie an 8.6 for being a good movie because good God, it's just so much fun. You honestly gotta watch it. As far as a Christmas movie, it's getting an 8.25. This is just one of the best Christmas movies. It's a really good Christmas movie. You should watch it. In The Night Before Christmas, a charming prince gets sent from like the 1300s to now, and he and Vanessa Hudgens fall in love. And he's a real goof who like doesn't understand modern times, and she sees him for who he really is, and so it's got some really kind of cute moments in it that I think make it more fun to watch than some of the others. It tries to do something really different, and I really appreciate that in all these movies that just feel the same. And something that I've realized with all of these movies is that like the more different they are, the more they strive to do something new and original. I like appreciate it a little bit more than I would if it was just the same as all the others. So because of this, it gets a 7 for being good, and then a 7.2 as a Christmas movie, because this is totally a Christmas movie. And finally, Klaus, which made me cry. This movie is amazing. From the very beginning to the very, very end of it. I loved this movie so much. It feels like a Pixar movie, even though it's made by a totally different studio. It's just got some amazing parts in it that I just really appreciated. It's my absolute favorite movie that we watched during this whole project, and probably one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time now. So there's that. I would almost go so far as to say that watching this movie made the entire project worth it. I loved this movie. If you haven't seen it, you absolutely should. Just so you know, it's already going up here. It's getting a 10 for being a good movie. This just rocked. The only reason I couldn't give this movie a perfect 10 out of 10 for being a Christmas movie is because only a third of the movie takes place at Christmas time, and as someone with a BS, I couldn't sleep at night if I manipulated the numbers to get the results that I want on one specific movie. That's not how being a scientist works, and that would just destroy me on the inside. Thanks for watching. But before we go, I want to talk about something that I noticed when I was watching these movies that I feel like is important not just to me, but to the NCCU as a whole. It begins in Night Before Christmas. In this movie, he watches both A Christmas Calendar and Holidate in the Wild, which establishes Netflix as some kind of streaming service in this universe. So in A Christmas Calendar, our main character watches both A Christmas Prince and A Christmas Inheritance. And while Christmas Inheritance is so far inconsequential, I want to direct your attention to A Christmas Prince, a movie that takes place mostly in the fictional country of Aldovia. In Night Before Christmas, Aldovia is mentioned as a real physical country that actually exists. This means that because we don't have Aldovia in our world, that these movies are taking place in a separate pocket universe, very similar to our own, near identical, but not quite. This ties Night Before Christmas into A Christmas Prince, and you may be thinking, Matt, come on, it's just a reference, maybe it's no big deal. Let me draw your attention to this acorn, which is a crucial piece of the plot of Christmas Prince. But maybe it's just a movie, but like, they went to Aldovia to get it, and if it was just a movie, then we would be seeing that acorn memorabilia be sold in our world, right? And I don't see any Aldovian acorns being sold in our world as any kind of Christmas memorabilia or Netflix memorabilia, so why on earth would it be sold there if it was just a piece of a movie? The only conclusion is that the events of A Christmas Prince actually transpired in the events of Night Before Christmas. But what are the implications of this? I mean, maybe nothing. But I want to direct your attention to this very scene in The Princess Switch, where one of the Vanessa Hudgens mentioned that A Christmas Prince is her favorite movie, which means that she has seen this and she hasn't met these people at all in the real world. This isn't a documentary. No, this is a movie capturing the events as they happened, as they unfolded. The closest thing I can compare this to is some form of reality TV. But it's not even that. It transcends media as we understand it. This internal Netflix, this pocket Netflix, escapes our own very understanding of how media can be consumed. And I could be okay with that, really. A tight-knit universe where movies and shows all kind of exist in the same reality. And that's what it was. Until The Princess Switched 2. Switched again. Wherein, at the coronation of one of the 3 canonical Vanessa Hudgens that we have, we see who else but Amber and Prince Richard holding their 1-year-old baby. I don't think I need to explain that this completely shatters everything that we understand about the NCCU so far. Because if Aldovia and Montanaro and Belgravia all exist in the same universe as The Night Before Christmas, then that means we have 4 Vanessa Hudgens clones, maybe even more. There might be an entire army of Vanessa Hudgens clones just waiting to have their own kingdoms be ruled. And she doesn't even know. The thing is, in Night Before Christmas, she doesn't even know that she has any form of royalty at all. But they're all connected somehow. They're all a princess or a duchess of some kind. What I suspect is that soon we will see more and more Vanessa Hudgenses grow into power. And that Brooke, the high school science teacher, will play an insanely important role in The Princess Switch 3, Attack of the Clones. You heard it here, folks. I don't know what to make of it. Thank you for watching. He really could have come to Christmas wherever he wanted to. It didn't have to be in the Los Angeles time. He could. The Princess Queen. Give it a.
Where is it?
Where is it? What am I looking at? Where did it? And while A Christmas Inheritance is so far inconsequential, I want to direct your attention to A Christmas. So many Christmas movies! I'm getting like A Christmas Prince, A Christmas Calendar, A Christmas fucking movie! Night Before Christmas! There's too many Christmas movies! It's driving me insane! I don't even remember what half these movies are called anymore! This ties Night Before Christmas into A Christmas... This ties Night Before Christmas. There's too many Christmas movies! Holy shit, I can't get this right! Maybe nothing. But I want to look at your attention.
I want to look at your attention!